At the beginning of the pandemic, I set out to make a body of artwork which would map our passage through. This presentation is the latest phase, the second half and conclusion of the project. It's practice-based research, it's inflected with auto-ethnography, it's meant as a creative response to our position, it's part of an investigation, an ongoing investigation into the artist-teacher identity. And it started right at the beginning of the early period of lockdown with a series of sketchbook diaries on folded paper which set the basic parameters of the project. I posted each day's work onto Instagram, seeking an audience and to make connections with people in similar situations. And these early works, these early drawings, became increasingly complicated and worked up, and I eventually turned them into paintings, square paintings, which fitted the Instagram profile better. And these are about 50 centimetres square, and I made them on patchwork collages. They're not collaged onto something. The patchwork collage of old resources, old drawings, prints, demonstration drawings and artworks that I made in classrooms over many years actually make a new piece of paper, as it were. So this is where I left off last year. This is in the summer of 2021, and I was making these quite intensively in batches of collage, and then I'd work on the drawing and the finishing off each day and posting them to Instagram. And in the summer, I took a break during the summer, and I found it quite difficult to get going again. In the autumn, I did start with some simplified works which went back to the folded drawings, used less colour and so on and so forth, and I had to sort of kick-start my creative process to get myself going again. Making these presentations played a part in that, actually. Looking back at what I'd done made me think again about what I was doing and refired my creative enthusiasm. So these early works, early restarted works, became more complicated. I started using colour again, started using collage. Each one has got a moment of observation in them, a small set of still life objects which I drew and redrew, and which were an important part of each painting. I realised that what I was doing was untangling the artist-teacher identity, that my way of being an artist had become so tangled up with my way of being a teacher that there was a lot going on which needed to be pulled apart. And my intention had been to work from one place to another, if you like, through making this sequence of works. And I found that just switching off the teacher aspect of the identity wasn't enough. It needed much more teasing out, and which is what these works really represent, I think, now, looking back at them. This spring, I made a stencil. I made a painting on an old cereal box. Then I cut away all the paint and I was left with a stencil which froze that observational moment and turned it into a repeated glyph in the artworks. It made it more of an abstract thing, less valued, just sort of part of the design. And through the early part of 2022 and into the summer of 2022, I carried on working at quite a pace, 5 days a week. I made these, and the ball of string disappears, reappears, gets cut up, moves around in these increasingly complicated, very intricate workings and reworkings of paint, of occlusion, of rubbing things out, putting things back in again, of erasure, of tearing up, cutting up. And the slow change of ideas can be seen in these grids on the Instagram. What I was interested in was trying to capture the slow rates of change. Our lives were still quite constrained because of our clinically extremely vulnerable status. We were still not going out very much at this point. We were still leading quite restricted lives, far beyond the lockdown of many other people. The rest of the world seemed to be getting on, getting back to normal, and we were still leading quite a restricted life at this point. And I wanted to keep the project going, but I had no idea how that would end. And I think I was keeping myself going in a way by doing these things. I was giving myself some sort of focus. There was an element of mindfulness in what I was doing, of creative endeavour in making these works, still really quite intensively. In August of this year, early August of 2022, we had a conversation with a consultant who thought that given our status, our vaccination status, the status of the virus and of modern therapeutics, we would probably be okay to be able to venture outside, to go a bit further and mix with people more, as long as we were careful about it. And the possibility of other activities, of leaving the house, of doing other things, that was enough to bring this project to a close. So these were the last few in July of 2022. The ending of the project, the ending of the necessity for the project really, with the end of our personal lockdown, coincided with the opportunity to exhibit the paintings in the Halesworth Gallery as part of an exhibition. And this meant that I could at long last both share them with others in a physical form, but also to see them myself displayed and to appreciate them. And this was another sort of concluding of the project. So the physical moving of the works here, all 400 of them, more than 400 over 2.5 years, being taken up to the gallery where I sorted them and picked out one every 10 days and displayed on the wall a run of about 32 with the pile in front of them here. And this gave a sort of an overview of the whole project and gave me an opportunity to reflect on what I'd achieved, which looked much more intense than perhaps I'd thought at the time. I realised the amount of commitment and work that I'd put into making these paintings over such a protracted time, and I took a while to get used to the idea of how much effort I'd put into these. This was another run of them. This is the whole of March 2021, which was displayed on another wall. And I'm looking for a place to display all 400 of them. If you have a venue with a lot of walls, then get in touch. I might have found a barn in Norfolk to put them all up in one go. And that brings the end of the project to a conclusion. I've still got some white collages which I made during the course of this, which are perhaps a pathway through to making another body of work in another way. But for the moment, I'm taking a break from making paintings. I'm doing some print work and doing some other things. And this brings the project, the lockdown sequence, to a conclusion for the moment. The work can be seen on my Instagram. I can be contacted through those pathways. Thanks for looking at the presentation.